Welcome to this episode of Fantasy Baseball Picks and Bets on the Mayo Media Network, presented by Prize Picks. I am Garion Thorne, and we are breaking down everything you need to know for Tuesday, April the 13th, and the 10-game featured slate over on DraftKings. We're also going to do some Prize Picks and some best bets for Tuesday's slate. And the first thing you really have to know is, as I mentioned, it is now a 10-game featured slate on DraftKings, not an 11-game featured slate. With the rain out between Baltimore and Seattle on Monday, suddenly we have a doubleheader on Tuesday between the Orioles and the Mariners. So that game is off the main slate. Was kind of looking at that game as maybe a spot to attack with some cheap stacks. I think that probably was going to get pretty high scoring. So that's a little unfortunate because this is a slate with a lot of good pitching. A lot of good pitching. And we'll get into that in just a second. But let us start with Prize Picks as we always do. And as I always let you know, head on over to prizepicks.com. Use the promo code MMNMLB when you are making your first deposit. And you can have that deposit matched up to $100. And you're going to want to do that because I feel pretty strongly about a couple plays on Prize Picks for Tuesday's slate. Play number 1, Giancarlo Stanton. I know he has been in a heck of a slump to begin the 2021 season, and it's not like he has all that easy a pitching matchup for Tuesday's slate. He draws Hyun-Jin Ryu of the Toronto Blue Jays, who we all know has been an ERA master going back to his time with the Los Angeles Dodgers. However, I'm just looking at this in the sense of purely Giancarlo Stanton up against a left-handed pitcher. It's a good left-handed pitcher. We all know that. But Ryu is still just a left-handed pitcher. And if Stanton's going to hit second in the lineup, as he did on Monday against the Blue Jays, I think this is a really, really nice spot for Stanton, who for his career is maybe the best ever, or at least among active players, at hitting left-handed pitching. If you don't know what I'm talking about, among active players with at least 500 plate appearances within the split, Giancarlo Stanton has the highest OPS, the highest isolated power, and the second best WOBA against left-handed pitching in baseball. So for him to only go over 6.5 fantasy points on Tuesday, that seems like a really low number, and I think Stanton can get there, especially considering his power and his possible lineup placement on Tuesday. So I'm going to take the over with Giancarlo Stanton. I'm going to take the under with Cesar Hernandez. It's not a huge number for Hernandez, just 5 fantasy points, but he has been struggling a lot to start the 2021 season. Through 39 plate appearances, Hernandez has just a 174 batting average and an anemic 274 WOBA. And his matchup, Cleveland's matchup on Tuesday, is Lucas Giolito, who looks incredible so far this season. And Giolito has always had reverse splits. I mean, it's not like righties hit him well either, but he has dominated left-handed batters throughout his brief career. In fact, going back to the start of 2019, if you go by expected WOBA to left-handed opponents, I mean, he's one of the best in baseball. There's really no question. Just a 256 expected WOBA in that frame of time to opposing left-handed hitters. The only 3 right-handed pitchers who have a better mark than Giolito's within that split are Tyler Glasnow, Garrett Cole, and Justin Verlander. So some pretty great company for Lucas Giolito. I like him to shut down Cleveland in general, but I will say under on Cesar Hernandez specifically to go along with that Giancarlo Stanton over. All right, let's get to the 10-game featured slate on DraftKings. As I mentioned, it is a very interesting one, and it is one chocked full of pitching goodness. Right off the top, you go, okay, the aforementioned Giolito is the 3rd highest priced pitcher in a relatively good matchup against Cleveland. You've got Shane Bieber pitching for Cleveland against Giolito. He's 10-7, the most expensive pitcher on the slate. He's only had at least 10 strikeouts in 8 of his last 10 starts. So it's not like he's not viable even at his price point. Trevor Bauer, $10,200, second most expensive pitcher on the slate. Going up against Colorado not in Colorado. That's a pretty good matchup, especially for someone who's struck out 39% of the batters he's faced in his first two starts with the Dodgers. So you've got the top three pitchers on this slate who are in amazing spots, all of whom are amazing pitchers. And yet, I don't think I want to really use any of those three guys because the pitching depth on Tuesday's slate is almost like none other I've seen. I mean, it's incredible. You keep running down. Dylan Bundy, 8,800. He's in a fantastic spot against the Royals. He's looked really good so far this season, too. We were kind of asking ourselves, was that 2020 truncated season from Bundy a mirage? No, it looks like he's really found something. 2 starts, 12 innings, 2.22 expected ERA, 33% strikeout rate, and a 5.33 strikeout to walk ratio. Kansas City is a team you really want to pick on when it comes to pitchers in DFS because they strike out a ton. There is so much swing and miss in that lineup. A 14.4% swinging strike rate coming into Monday. That was the second highest mark in all of baseball. And really, the one knock on Bundy throughout his career has been his inability to consistently get out left-handed bats. What left-handed bats are you really afraid of in this Royals lineup? Andrew Benintendi's been terrible to begin 2021. Carlos Santana might draw a walk. That's about all he does nowadays. He's hitting 185, or he was hitting 185 coming into Monday's slate. So there's no big lefties to fear. The strikeouts should be there. So Bundy for under 9K, I think that's just as good a spot as any of those three expensive guys. And again, you keep going down the list. We've got a matchup between Steven Strasburg and Jack Flaherty. Both those guys below $8,500. When are you ever going to see both those names on a slate for just over $8,000? It's insane. I think I'd lean Strasburg of the two. He looked phenomenal in his first outing through 6 scoreless innings against the Braves, 8 strikeouts in that span, a 14% swinging strike rate, only threw 85 pitches, so he could have gone deeper into that game, and he will go deeper into Tuesday's game against the Cardinals. But, that's a great price. Brandon Woodruff, what does this guy have to do to get above $8,000? I guess start pitching on worse slates because, again, coming off an amazing start in his last outing against the Cubs, he gets the Cubs again, and he's just $7,500. The Cubs have the lowest WRC plus of any team in baseball. They strike out so much. Look, I know it's a second consecutive start for Woodruff, but I have to go back to the well here. He is just too good and possesses too much strikeout upside for me to ignore. And then you've got Luis Castillo at $7,100. This is someone who last season was consistently over $9,000 and occasionally $10,000. I mean, he has that type of strikeout upside, and you might look at his stats through 2 starts and say, okay, the strikeouts haven't been there for Luis Castillo, but he's still someone who can generate a lot of bad swings and get opposing hitters to swing at pitchers' pitches, even in those 2 starts. And again, I fully acknowledge his K per 9 right now is below 5. It's kind of ridiculous, although a lot of that is kind of from that first start, that really ugly start on opening day. But he's still generated a 44.9% chase rate in those 2 starts. It just so happens that his O contact rate in those 2 games has been 77.5%. If you want to understand how much of an outlier that is, his career O contact rate is 54.8%. At some point, that's going to normalize. And I would say that it probably normalizes against San Francisco, a team that I much rather when they are facing a left-handed pitcher than a right-handed pitcher. I think some of those platoon splits they really utilize, much more dangerous team when they are drawing a southpaw pitcher as opposed to a righty like Luis Castillo. So again, Bieber, Bauer, Giolito, I'm not saying these guys aren't viable. How could they not be viable? But there is so much high upside, high ceiling pitching value on this slate that I just don't know how you pay up. And again, this is one of those slates where I wouldn't really be worrying at all about ownership because there are so many possible ways to go with pitching that I don't think any one guy is going to be particularly popular. It's going to be spread pretty much throughout this list. So pick a couple guys you like. But again, there are some cheap names. You can get Brandon Woodruff and Luis Castillo into a lineup at, combined 14-6 And that leaves you so much money, which you might need because with all these amazing pitchers, as you would expect, there's not a ton of obvious stacking opportunities. You've got Houston up against Matthew Boyd. I know he's looked okay through his first 2 starts, but Houston, a lot of guys in that lineup who can crush left-handed pitching. Tampa Bay's been a little hit or miss, but they get Kyle Gibson. I think that's going to be a spot that a lot of people attack. One area that I really wanted to focus on, because it's kind of a strange situation, not something we see all that much. You can actually get the Dodgers at kind of a value, as strange as that sounds. It's a great matchup against Antonio Senzatella. The game is in Los Angeles, again, not Colorado, so you don't get the added benefit of the altitude, but Senzatella has had issues with left-handed bats throughout the entirety of his career, and there are a lot of left-handed bats in the Dodgers lineup, even with Cody Bellinger on the IL. There's a lot of cheap left-handed bats suddenly in Los Angeles' lineup. This could change if Mookie Betts comes back. He's missed the last 3 games for the Dodgers with a nagging back issue. They had Monday off. I think the hope is he's going to play Tuesday, but Dave Roberts has said they are going to be cautious with Mookie Betts, as they should. They're winning games even without him and without Bellinger, so no rush for Mookie. So if Mookie doesn't play, Gavin Lux actually hit leadoff in their most recent game. That was Sunday against Max Scherzer, so a right-handed pitcher just like Senzatella. It's the only time Antonio Senzatella and Max Scherzer have ever been compared, but 2 right-handed pitchers. So if Gavin Lux leads off in this great spot against Senzatella at just $3,800, you have to take advantage of that. And then, yes, Corey Seager, still stupid expensive. Max Muncy, still stupid expensive. You can afford them if you're someone who's taking the Brandon Woodruff, Luis Castillo, Steven Strasburg kind of route. Throw Dylan Bundy in there as well, under $9,000. You can afford some of those big boppers, and you can augment their cost, again, with Gavin Lux, with Edwin Rios, who's been hitting 6th against right-handed pitching, with Zach McKinstry, who's $3,200 and seemingly can't be stopped right now in the batter's box. So some of that stuff might normalize a little bit, but again, there are ways to sort of accent the expensive Dodgers bats on Tuesday's slate with some cheaper guys. And I think Lux in particular, if Mookie is out and he's still hitting leadoff, he's one of the best value plays on this entire slate, not counting pitching, because again, stupid value with the pitchers. Okay, let's close this out with a couple of best bets, and I'm going to go right back to a well that was a pretty good well last week. You'll remember one of my best bets, I believe it was for Wednesday's slate last week. I took the under in this exact pitching matchup, and the game went to extras and made us sweat a little bit, but gonna take the under yet again in Milwaukee, Chicago. Just Kyle Hendricks versus Brandon Woodruff. In a vacuum, that's a good place to start, not to mention that Milwaukee and Chicago are last and second last in WRC Plus in the National League. So neither of these 2 teams has been able to hit so far this season. They've got their aces on the hill on Tuesday. I just think this is going to be a low-scoring game. We got it at 9 last week. It's just 7.5, but I'm willing to go back there. It is minus 103 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Also, we talked a little bit about Giancarlo Stanton and the Yankees. I just like the Yankees as underdogs in general on Tuesday. Right now, they are plus 108. The pitching matchup isn't great. I can see why the Jays are favored. One, they're at home in Dunedin. But Hyunjin Ryu versus Jameson Taillon. Taillon didn't look amazing in his first start, but I'm still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. We know what Taillon can be when he's healthy. And also, the Jays just don't have a lot of offensive mojo right now. And I know they scored 15 runs against Jose Quintana on Saturday, but that was a weird, rain-delayed game. Quintana and the Angels walked 9 guys that night. It would be hard for the Jays not to score 15 runs. They've scored 1 run or fewer in 3 of their last 5 games. They don't have Teoscar Hernandez. They don't have George Springer. Lourdes Gurriel isn't hitting right now. Rowdy Tellez isn't hitting right now. Marcus Semion's not hitting right now. I just think you can get the Yankees at plus money. I'm going to take the opportunity to do it. I just think they're the hotter team right now. They're coming in better form. I'm a little concerned. I think Darren O'Day and Aroldis Chapman have now pitched in back-to-back games. They're probably unavailable, and suddenly that Yankee pen gets pretty bad when you lose those two guys, and Zach Britton is on the IR. But I'm going to take the Yankees again, plus 108. And I'm going to, you could parlay that if you want with Milwaukee, Chicago, and the under. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Fantasy Baseball Picks and Bets presented by Prize Picks on the Mayo Media Network. I am Garion Thorne. I will catch you guys later.